Hello, everybody, and welcome to the After the Buzzer show. Today, I'm very lucky to be joined for the first time by my awesome co host, Cooper and Graham, and we've got a good first episode prepared for you guys. We're going to get started with our NBA Finals preview, talk a little bit about game one. But before we get into that, please be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of our uploads. Subscribing also helps us get more exposures, so we would greatly appreciate that. And once you've done that, let's talk about it. So, game one, Heat going down on the road in Denver. Graham, what are your takeaways from that? Like, what do you think it meant for game one, but also for the remainder of the series?
All right, so obviously this is the Nuggets' first finals game in their history. The Heat have been here a couple of times before. I think it's a big thing for Denver's city going in to see their team win. First finals win, not only first finals game, first finals win. Obviously, you don't see Jokic cracking under the pressure. Had 27, 10 and 14. Obviously, another classic Nikola Jokic game. Jamal Murray with 26, 10 and 6. You know, Aaron Gordon even putting in 16 points. Michael Porter Jr. did struggle, but with 13 rebounds, collective team effort. They did shoot 29% from the 3-point line. That's a little worrying for Denver. Obviously, a crazy good offensive team when they're on. You would like to see them shoot better from three, but if they're Denver's not really known to be a great defensive team. Obviously, Nikola Jokic is a defensive liability at times. Holding Miami to 93 points. Obviously, Miami, one of the worst scoring offenses in the NBA this season, but the best scoring offense in the NBA playoffs so far. Obviously, Bam Adebayo, great game, 13 for 25, 26 point, 13 rebounds. But Jimmy Butler, man, 6 for 14, 13 points. You're the superstar in this team. You got to put up more points. You letting Gabe Vincent, Highsmith score more points than you. It's just you got to be better than that. I mean, you're the superstar on the team.
I think you're right. I do want to go back to what you said about Denver, though. I think this is actually a better win than you're giving him credit for. I think the fact that they won and they only shot what, 28, you said 28% from three?
Yeah, 29%.
Yeah, if they only shot 29% from three and they won by 11 points, I know they're at home and I know, other games are bound to be closer, but I think this kind of shows how versatile their offense is. I think we can take away a good amount from this game. We can say, look, you know, they can win decisively even when they're not shooting well. So I think if I'm Denver, you would like to shoot closer to 40 or closer to 35 more realistically from three, but you also kind of have to be like, look, we shot 29% today. That's fine if we won. We're going to move on and, try to shoot better in game two.
Yeah. I also just want to bring up the fact, Caleb Martin, 26 points in game sevens against Boston. Really the big reason Miami was able to put off this massive Celtics comeback in this series. 3 points, negative 10 plus or minus, 1 for 7 from the field, 1 for 2 from the 3-point line. And Max Strus, another huge part in this game seven against Boston, 0 for 10, 0 for 9 from three. I mean, you've heard it all playoff long. The Heat undrafted players, they're the heart and soul of this team. Obviously, Jimmy Butler's superstar, Bam Adebayo, his sidekick character, but it's really been these undrafted players, playing above, way beyond expectations, have really been the reason this Heat team has been able to surprise teams like the Bucks and the Celtics. But obviously, not coming alive, shooting 1 for 17 from the field and 1 for 11 from three between the two guys. I mean, the Heat aren't going to win you can't expect Jimmy Butler to give you 50 points a night. I mean, he can, but the undrafted players is really what propels this team. And if they're not going to get production from them, I really don't know if I can see the Heat winning a single game in this series.
Really? That's a take. I mean, are you predicting a sweep or what are you thinking right
I'm,
now?
I'm not saying I'm predicting a sweep, but if Caleb Martin and Max Strus and Duncan Robinson struggling too, if Henry Highsmith is going to be your second best player along with Jimmy Butler, uh, I can't imagine. And I guess Bam Adebayo did have a good game, like I said, but if you're not gonna get production from Robinson, Strus, and I don't like the Nuggets have too much firepower with Murray, Gordon, KCP when he's on, Jokic, Marco Porter Jr., Bruce Brown's even good. The Heat need more. They're not a great offense team currently constructed. Obviously, Tyler Hero going down earlier in the playoffs, a big offensive contributor for that team. If they're not going to score a lot of points, then they're just not going to beat this high-powered Nuggets team.
I think that's fair. Obviously, pretty intuitive. If they can't score, they're not going to beat the Nuggets. But what do you think that they're going to change in game two? Because they have to change something. They have to get some sort of momentum heading back to game three in Miami. Like, what do you want them to change? And what do you think they're going to end up changing? And really, the big question is it going to work?
So obviously, we have to talk about the fact the Heat shot the least amount of free throws in an NBA Finals game, I believe, in NBA history. They went 2 for 2 from the line.
Oh my,
Nug-
only two?
yep, 2 shots, three
That's
shots from the
insane.
line. The Nuggets went 16 for 20 from the line. So the Nuggets obviously, I mean, 23 throws is a crazy amount, but it's obviously a good amount. You want to get to the line that many times. We constantly saw in that Celtics series Jimmy Butler being aggressive, getting the line against the Celtics team when he was on. If you're 2 for 2 from the free throw line, you're not putting enough pressure on this Nuggets defense. Nikola Jokic is just not a great rim protector. You saw Bam Adebayo, who really struggled against that Celtics defense in that Boston series. Really get to Jokic. They did some screen rolls. Jokic obviously playing more paint defense instead of Robert Williams and Al Horford often come to the 3-point line with Adebayo. More space for Adebayo to get that, little mid-range shot. But if Jimmy Butler's not getting the line, or like Caleb Martin was even getting the line a lot in that Boston series. If they're not getting the line, they're really setting to be a jump shooting team. That's not how the Heat have been winning these playoff series. They've been winning by getting the free throw line, playing good defense, shooting threes when they need to, making clutch shots and playing good defense. If you're going to shoot 2 free throws from the free throw line, once again, against this great high powered Nuggets offense, you're just not going to win many games.
Oh yeah, I mean they're gonna get swept if they're shooting two free throws a game. That's for sure. So, and I guess I also want to get Cooper in here too. But do we think the Heat are gonna be able? So, for example, obviously, like you said, Jimmy Butler, he's got to be like leading the team. We know that. Do you think that we're gonna see an increased role, ideally, for Caleb Martin because he had 3 points in 25 minutes in game one, like you said, which obviously is completely unsustainable if they want to even get close to winning this series. So my question is more like, do we think that, for example, someone like Caleb Martin, who only had 3 points in 25 minutes, how is Eric Spoelstra going to get him more productively involved? Because again, he played a little more than half the game, so he had his minutes. He just couldn't do anything with it. So do you think that there's a way that he can get their guys not named Jimmy Butler more involved and more productive in their minutes?
Well, I like from the time I watched in that game, Caleb Martin was getting open shots. Same with Duncan Robinson and stuff. They just weren't hitting the shots that they were making in that Celtics game. Caleb Martin was really aggressive against Boston. He was getting the lane. He was getting layups. He was, taking, like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum 1-on-1 many times, hitting step back threes, and he just would seem like to just like fall out of the picture. Against I would say a less superior defense in with the Denver Nuggets. Maybe I'm not giving enough credit to their due, but Michael Porter Jr. is not known for being a defensive, stalwart. So if Caleb Martin, who's often going up against Michael Porter Jr., is going to get locked down, I mean, Caleb Martin is still the guy who was waived by the Charlotte Hornets in Charlotte some of their worst years. He's been a bench role. Really has just come alive in this playoffs. I mean, he could have just been an anomaly. I hope not for Caleb Martin's sake. It could have just been an anomaly though that with the production that Caleb Martin was putting up. You got to hope if you're a Heat fan that this was a hiccup in his in the series, and that Caleb Martin will be back to his Eastern Conference Finals self, and even back to the next series. Just I don't know, put the ball in the hands of. I think you're Eric Spoelstra. You have to put the ball in the hands of Jimmy Butler and I guess Kyle Lowry at some points, but most of the time, ball has to be with Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler has to be the one facilitating the offense. If Caleb Martin's open and Jimmy Butler wants to pass Caleb Martin, then Caleb Martin should take those shots. But Jimmy should be your leading scorer night in, night out. It goes back to the 13 points. Like 14 shots, I just don't feel is enough. I think he should be more in the 23, 24 shot range. The good thing about Jimmy Butler is if he's off, he's not going to force it. But in the NBA Finals, especially with the team with this, lackluster in offense at times, Jimmy Butler's got to, take over, like realize that he is the man. And even if he's not going to be making his shots earlier in the game, sometimes you're going to have that shooter's mentality.
Yeah, no, I think you're totally right
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
I also didn't notice that Haywood Highsmith, not only did he outperform Jimmy Butler in terms of points, he also actually played 23 minutes, which obviously is less than Butler, but that's that's more than he's been getting used to. So I think the Heat had a lot of problems on Thursday night, and I think they better hope that they're going to get it turned around. So I want to kind of pivot towards predictions. I before the series had Nuggets in 5. I'm sticking to that prediction. I think they played fairly well in game 1 despite not being able to shoot threes, and I think from here it only gets better. I think they're going to drop one of the 2 games in Miami, but I think they close it up game 5 at home. And I say that mostly because I don't think Miami can contain them. Like you were saying, Graham, the Nuggets have a really, really electric offense, and that's just going to be hard to deal with. I also want to say that I think the Nuggets kind of start out with a fundamental advantage in this series because the Heat, had a 7-game series where they were up 3-0, fell all the way back to square one, had to finish up game 7 in Boston and fly all across the country to Colorado. And so I think that's a big part of it. That could have been part of the reason that they were so sloppy in game 1. But I think another part of it is the Nuggets are kind of hitting their stride right now. And I know the Heat are the hottest team in basketball right now, right? They're an 8 seed. They beat the Bucks, the Celtics. But the problem for them is that I think the Nuggets are really hitting their stride right now.
I would totally agree. I think that there was the worry about the rust of this Nuggets roster. They kept coming up with things like Coach Mike Malone for the Nuggets kept saying that we were practicing, we're getting our reps in, we're ready for this Heat team when they come in. But you had to wonder if this Heat team, coming off that high of being the 8 seed and containing this like wild comeback from Boston, really putting the hammer down on Boston in Game 7 at TD Garden. They would be riding high and they would just be the hotter team and more ready and prepared, even if they were more tired than Denver. But still, at the same time, Denver, they were rusty, but you have to assume that they're gonna shoot better than this, and that even with a rusty team, they were still able to pretty solidly beat Miami. And I would have to go in 5 too. I mean, I think Jimmy Butler's too good of a player, and Miami Heat's too good of a collective unit. Maybe if they don't have the talent even to get swept. I just think they're too good and too well coached to be swept. But I think Denver just overall is just a much superior team.
I don't know. I would say
Yeah,
I
that's
would
where I'm
have
at.
Nuggets in 6 instead of Heat or Nuggets in 5. I just feel like the Heat's being on the road in this one loss. I don't think this determines the rest of what they have. Yes, they had a really bad game. I think they can do a lot better than what they were.
Yeah, I have to agree. I
Yeah.
mean, but it's obviously really hard to win, as Miami has shown in the playoffs in Miami. They have a pretty good record there. I mean, it's gonna be hard. Miami has a great crowd. But Denver's shown all playoff long that they're not really that they're ready for the stage. They're not really scared of any fan base, any crowd, any stadium, any team. So I don't know how much home court advantage is going to matter for Miami, and I really just don't see Miami taking a game in Denver. So there's not a lot of ways I can see Miami winning this series.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think we're on the same boat there with Nuggets in 5 and Nuggets in 6. And then I guess my last question here before we kind of transition would be, what are we thinking for Kyle Lowry? Because he's my favorite player in this series. I've liked him since he was, back in his heyday on the Raptors. What are we thinking for Kyle Lowry? Does he crack 17 in any games this series?
Um, I don't think he really has to. I mean, I think this is 11. He shot 4 for 8, 3 for 6, and he came in and he put some productive minutes top beginning of the fourth quarter. Brought that lead down to I think it was maybe 7 or 8 at one point. Early in that fourth quarter, big run by the Heat to kind of put a scare into the Nuggets. I think that's really what he's meant to do. He's always been kind of a pesky player. Like fighting with the other team's players when the refs aren't looking. Kind of team player. Kind of gets the team all riled up around him. Team leader, obviously a like big veteran. So I think 11, 5, and 5 for Kyle Lowry. +2 in the plus or minus. Actually, the only player on the Heat with a positive plus or minus score. If you're Kyle Lowry, you gotta be totally fine with that. 5 rebounds. Obviously, Kyle Lowry, a big player, but feisty player. Puts his heart in every single game. Um, plays his butt off. It's 11 points, 5 and 5. If Caleb Martin, Max Juice are going to come alive, then there's no reason Kyle Lowry should be the one to need to score So I don't really think so. Yes, Kyle Lowry definitely can crack 17, and like he might have to crack 17. But if the Heat are winning this finals, Kyle Lowry really shouldn't crack 17 because he shouldn't need to. If Kyle Lowry is cracking 17 points, then something's going wrong with this Heat team.
I mean, I that's like the more nuanced take. I think like fundamentally, if like you're right, but I also think that if Lowry's cracking 17, something's also gone wrong on the Nuggets side of the equation because they are letting Kyle Lowry in 2023 crack 17. Like this isn't 2018 anymore, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think he doesn't need to crack. He shouldn't be cracking 17. Like if there's any way in which he does even get like if he scores 15, I think that's what they would want. That's kind of the sweet spot because he's being really productive, but he's not, doing too much. But yeah, so I think we're on the same page there. Uh, let's talk a little bit about the NFL though, because off season, but NFL is NFL.
All right. Kuru, want to start us off?
Um, I guess just your predictions for the next, like, what would your predictions for the divisions for next year, and how different teams are going to go? You say.
All right. You wanna give your text first?
Well, okay. I'll start with the NFC. I would say the Lions, Eagles, Panthers. For NFC South, Panthers or Saints could take it, and then the 49ers. And then for the AFC, I got the Bengals, Bills, Jaguars, and Chiefs.
I'm gonna say the only one I disagree with is the Saints Panthers one. Uh, the Panthers I think are appealing like service level, but Bryce Young I don't really think is gonna be like necessarily the guy in season one. Like they have a more talented team long term, but I really don't know if I'd bet on them winning the division this year, even though it is a horrible division. I like the Saints
Yeah,
more. I mean I think with you know, a decent defense. Like they already have stuff there. They're not going to be good, but I think they're going to like, kind of be like what the Commanders or the Washington football team did in 2020, where they won the division with like 7 wins. I think they're going to get 8 wins, but it's a horrible division and they're going to
yeah,
lose in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah,
yeah,
I would have to agree there.
yeah.
I'm gonna pick the Saints, just same as you, Ryan. I like Derek Carr fitting that offense. Obviously, Alvin Kamara, all the problems with him in the offseason. Of course, players go to Vegas and they end up going to jail. But I think that Kamara's still a good player. I mean, I assume that he's going to be on the Saints roster week one. So there's always a good option there. They keep defying the salary cap limits. I mean, I don't know how they do this, but they keep end up paying like people $30 million a season. You hear all about the Saints team like 10 million on the cap, and then they're going out and they're signing people to big contracts this the next year. I don't like the Saints coach. I don't think he's the right one for the job. Um, so I mean that makes me a little skeptical. Obviously, this is a very aging Saints team. They got a lot of holes, obviously because of their money issues. But I like the Derek Carr signing. I think that he's going to come out. He's going to have a good year. Obviously, if Michael Thomas, decides that he wants to still play football, that'll be really helpful for the Saints team. But Traquan Smith, a good receiver there. I gotta have the Saints winning the South. So I just don't think the Panthers are ready just yet.
Yeah, that's my take too. Even though
Yeah,
I think Bryce Young way more interesting long term than Derek Carr Saints.
Obviously, I think the Panthers are set up to be the dominant force in this division long term, with the other three teams kind of on the decline. I mean, I don't really know what the Falcons are doing. They seem to be bouncing up and down ever since really they made that Super Bowl run.
They haven't made the playoffs since what 2017. Like they're not doing anything. Like
Yeah, I
I
mean,
don't.
yeah.
One of the most irrelevant franchises of the year.
yeah, definitely.
Um, yeah. Going back to like the predictions, I agree on most things. I did have the Bears win the NFC North. I mean, obviously, I do think Justin Fields is way overhyped.
Yeah,
I don't. He's really not shown anything but besides ability to break off long runs. It does make him very enticing. But I still gotta say like this Bears defense, I love their free agency signings. I love what they did with their money. I love their draft. And obviously Aaron Rodgers out of the NFC North. The Lions, you never really know. I mean, Jared Goff is still their quarterback, and while I love what Jared Goff did last season, put up great numbers, a lot of underrated numbers actually. I just see the Bears, putting up. Obviously, got DJ Moore in that trade. I think they have a little more weaponry in that offense, even though the Lions had a great offense. And the Bears just have the Lions' defense was just atrocious last year. And while they have good pieces, I think the Bears' defense will be better. So I think that's a race to 10 wins in that division between the Lions and the Bears. I really just see a decline with the Vikings. I know they won 13 games last year, but they had I don't know, 11 games with the one score. Easily see them winning 6 games this year. Dalvin Cook looks out the door. I really see the Bears as a prime favorite, even with Justin Fields being overhyped.
That's an interesting take because I don't think I've ever heard anyone argue for the Bears to win that division while also not being a Justin Fields lover. I like Justin Fields. I think he's a good quarterback. I don't really know what to think of him because I don't agree entirely with what you said about him. I think he's shown flashes where he can make really good throws, and even against good, they were horrible. They were a 3-14 team last year, and he still had moments, especially towards the end of the season, where he looked like he was, really making the right throws. So I don't really know if I don't think you're giving him enough credit, to be frank, but I also am lower on the Bears than you are overall. I think the Lions are going to get 11 wins. When you look at what they did at the end of last season, they finished in the final 8 games, they were 7-1 or something like that. They were a really good team in the second half. And, they missed the playoffs, but it was barely. And they also lost a lot of one-score games, as they always do. But they started off 1-6, 1-7. And the way they finished, I thought that they looked like a really good team. And I think for them to hold on and keep their composure throughout a really bad start to the season, still trust the process, trust Dan Campbell, trust Jared Goff as quarterback, I think they're in a good spot. And I think the Bears are the second best team in that division, just ahead of the Vikings. But to me, the Lions are the clear favorite to win this one.
Yeah, I agree with you, Ryan. I feel like also the Chicago Bears, you can't come off a 3-14 season and just take the division. That's not going to work out well. You need to do a lot over the offseason, and I don't think they've had it just yet. Maybe in 2 seasons or something they can do it, but I think they still have some building to do.
Before we transition a little bit, I would just like to go one more time into the division race. I know the Bengals are a great team, obviously. I mean, they could easily make the Super Bowl this year. Joe Burrow, great quarterback. I would say top 3, if not top 2. And
he's worse than Josh Allen, just so you know. Josh Allen's better than Joe Burrow.
You could argue either way. I would say Josh Allen is the better quarterback, but Joe Burrow is right there with them. I mean, I think it's Mahomes the clear favorite at the moment, but Joe Burrow and Josh Allen are obviously fantastic quarterbacks. And the Bengals, they keep getting better year after year, keep making good free agency signings, keep making good draft picks. I like their defense. I like what they did with their O-line over the offseason. I know it was a big problem last year. But I'm really high on this Ravens team. I'm kind of tired of hearing the Lamar Jackson's a running back thing. I really love Lamar Jackson as a quarterback, and I know he's been hurt. I know there's an indifference on really if he wants to play with this Ravens team, but I think getting Odell Beckham, getting him some weapons. This defense is obviously always going to be top 3 in the NFL year after year. John Harbaugh is a great coach. I think the Ravens are a prime candidate to win 13, 14 games this year, and I think they're a sleeper to win this division. I'm even going to pick them to win the AFC North with all this competition in it.
I would
Really?
say, yeah, the Ravens are going to do really well at next year, but I would say the Bengals still have it. The Bengals are a really strong team, and yeah, the Ravens picked up some weapons like OBJ, but I don't think they can surpass the Bengals just yet.
The Ravens have they start off the year pretty easy. Their first games, aside from the Bengals, they should win. Because they play the Texans. Then they play the Bengals, which it's in Cincinnati. I think they lose that one. I think we all agree on that. But they play the Texans, the Colts, the Browns, the Steelers, the Titans, and then they play the Lions, which is a hard game. But then they go play the Cardinals. They get the Browns again, and later down the stretch they get, you know, the Steelers and the Rams. So I think this is actually a pretty easy schedule.
Yeah.
You know, you could easily find 10 or 11 wins here. My only problem with that, or with what Graham said, is that I think Lamar's problem for next season is that I don't know if he's going to have that dog in him, right? Because he did in like 2019 was probably the year he got the most hype. You know, he won MVP, obviously, but I feel like there's a change in like the way he's gone about the Ravens as an organization. And I think, you know, the holdout, the drama over the offseason, I think is going to cost them, not tangibly, but I think in the locker room, I think that could be a bit of a problem. And they're a good team. They could easily win the division, but I'm not going to pick them after, you know, how much of a crazy offseason they just had. So I like the Bengals. I think they're going to be good again. And I think Joe Burrow, obviously, I like him a bit less than Josh Allen, but he's still the third best quarterback in the league.
Yeah.
All right. I think we should transition for a little last segment into the DeAndre Hopkins, race for DeAndre Hopkins. Should we start with Cooper? Hear what you're all about.
Yeah, I would say I hope the Giants get him because I am a Giants fan. I do think we need some more receivers, but I believe the Chiefs are going to pick him up, even though coming off a Super Bowl, I don't think they would really need him as much as other teams, and they shouldn't try and get him as much. But I do think the Chiefs are going to get him.
All right. What I would
That's
like
where
to
I
talk
am
about,
too.
You're saying Chiefs, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, the only other like, it's the top three would be like the Chiefs, the Bills, and maybe, to be nice to actually both you guys, I'll give the Giants the third slot. But the Chiefs love to sign these guys. They love you know, Le'Veon Bell, you know, LaShawn McCoy, back. I think they actually they won a Super Bowl with Damian Williams. So, you know, I think this has kind of got Chiefs written all over it, especially without Juju.
Um, well, I think the Chiefs are a very enticing candidate. It seems like a two-team race, honestly, at this point in the last couple of days between the Patriots and the Browns, actually. It seems like the Patriots are the team of the most interest right now in DeAndre Hopkins, but it seems like DeAndre Hopkins is the most interest in the Browns. Obviously, he went on and said he would love to play with Deshaun Watson. I mean, I don't read too much into that because he did say he'd love to play with Jalen Hurts, and there seemed to be no connection between the Eagles and DeAndre Hopkins at the current moment.
Yeah.
But
he also said Josh Allen too, like a week before. So, you know.
yeah, I think the Bills and the Chiefs are great options. I don't know about the Giants. I mean, I love the Giants, love them to death, but for the Giants' sake, we trying to keep over the salary cap, trying to sign Barkley. I don't really see DeAndre Hopkins here being in a Giants uniform come week one. I really see. I would be really interested to see a Deshaun Watson, Mari Cooper, Nick Chubb, and DeAndre Hopkins offense, along with that defense, who did play pretty poorly last year, but has all the talent in the world to be great. So I do actually going to have to predict the Browns to sign him here. I really just see the Browns being the one here to come away with DeAndre Hopkins. And yeah, while that does make the Browns pretty exciting, I still have to pick the Ravens in that division.
Yeah, I would say Chiefs are definitely who I expect to get them, but I definitely put Browns at number 2 spot for that.
Can we get behind the like Graham said, he's not a Belichick type receiver, but I really don't see him going to the Patriots. I would I know it's you know, the story is he might go to the Patriots, but I just can't see it.
Yeah, I just don't see DeAndre Hopkins in a Patriots uniform. I mean, that just makes me cringe. Honestly, it's just I can't imagine it in my brain. I can imagine I can imagine DeAndre Hopkins in a Brown uniform. I can imagine him in the Chiefs uniform. I can even imagine him in the Giants uniform, even the Cowboys uniform for that matter. But not the Patriots. I mean, that's not a DeAndre Hopkins. That's not a destination that I would ever pick DeAndre Hopkins to go in a million years.
Yeah, certainly not. I'm on the same page. So yeah, we're gonna talk more about this. Me and Graham are next week in a kind of zoomed in mini episode. But for now, thank you for tuning into the first ever episode of the After the Buzzer podcast. We really appreciated it. And again, if you could subscribe, share it with a friend, that would go a long way. So thank you guys.